All right, so I received a question asking if it's morally wrong to buy an animal from a farm and rescue it. So I replied to that saying it depends on if the animal was going to be used for meat at the farm or not. And then somebody responded to that saying that they were very confused. Like, why would it be wrong to buy and rescue an animal from a farm just because it was going to be eaten or used at the farm for food? And I decided to make a video response to it to try to express it the best I can. So the problem with how animals are harmed by humans, for the most part, all comes down to demand. It's all math. It's all numbers. If a certain amount of meat is purchased at a store, then that store is going to order a certain amount of meat. The farm's going to produce that much meat. They're going to send the meat into the store. The more people cut back on meat, the less animals will be bred into existence and butchered and meat sent in. So if a cow was going to be butchered and that meat was going to go to stores and be sold, then that's its thing. But if you go and buy that cow and put it on your sanctuary, then another cow is going to be bred into existence, because if the meat's in demand, it's in demand. Now, that cow will go through the same suffering that the cow you purchased would have gone through, but you just picked one out of the many to give a good life. So yeah, you can look at that cow and go, this cow had a good life and it would have been killed, and so I saved it. But essentially you created a new cow to be killed and butchered. And so it's a bummer to look at it as, well, this cow is its own individual cow, and this is the one I care about. But that other cow is also an individual cow. So you buying it is putting it in demand. And that's why I asked the question if it was going to be eaten or not. So if they were just going to kill it because they couldn't use it, they couldn't fatten it up enough for butchering it or something like that. I can't imagine why, but let's just imagine that they were going to kill it and they weren't going to use it for meat or anything. Yeah, if you have a big land and you can rescue that and put it on that land, I would say that as long as it's not suffering, it's probably better to put it there than to kill it. So again, that's why I brought up the idea of it depends on what it's used for. And an analogy I have for this that I think is very interesting, and I'm not comparing animals to humans, but imagine you were back in slave days. So you're in like the early 1800s, you're in a slave state, and you see somebody pull a slave onto stage and is selling the slave. Now, you don't agree with slavery. Let's say you think it's horrible. You're so saddened by this idea, and you have plenty of money. So you could buy that slave and tell that slave, hey, I don't believe in slavery. I don't really have any way to like free you or anything, because the amount of time it would take to get you to freedom, we wouldn't be able to get you there. But I will let you live in my house and you can have all the food you want. And you're going to be treated so perfectly. You're not going to be a slave there. And, you can just be my best friend for the rest of your life. Now, you might think that this is a good deed you're doing. You're taking this individual human and you're giving them this good life. But if you purchase that slave, you are putting slavery in demand. If that day there was going to be 20 slaves sold, but because you bought one, there's 21 sold, then that's going to affect how many are brought over on ships and sold. So I think the most moral thing to do in that situation would be to not purchase the slave and put them in a good situation. Now, that slave is going to go and have a horrible life. Hopefully it's not as horrible as it could be, but it might be the most horrible. And you could have made that person not have a horrible life, and it might have seemed right in the moment to do it. But I don't think it is. I don't think it is, because you're putting it in demand. You're making the idea seem acceptable. Now, purchasing the cow, you're not making an idea seem acceptable, but you are putting it in demand. So anyways, those are my thoughts. If you disagree, I would love to hear why. And I'd love to hear various different reasons for why maybe some animals should be purchased. But I would say in general, if you could go to a farm and like it's a turkey farm or something, and you can just pick a turkey and buy it and take it home and have it be your friend, and you saved that one from being dinner. You didn't. You just brought a new one in to be dinner. You put the demand in, and the one that's already born, it's already gone through whatever level of suffering, being stuck where it's at without giving consent to exist maybe in this small area, and having another one go through that whole process when the one you bought already went through a good amount of the process and was just going to die soon. I really think it's best for the animals to not do that. But definitely maybe save the ones that aren't a situation where you're putting it in demand.